Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Jake with PackMan Sports with another video, and this video is on the reasons why the Green Bay Packers decided to trade out of the first round into the top of the second round to select Kevin King in the 2017 NFL Draft instead of staying put at number 29 overall in the first round to take TJ Watt. I know a whole lot of people like to play the hindsight game and think that the Packers absolutely should have selected TJ Watt in the first round, 29th overall in the NFL Draft, and it was a big mistake for the Green Bay Packers to trade out of the round and take Kevin King. I want to take you guys back to 2016, in which there were some big time issues with the Packers cornerbacks, and comparing it to the outside linebacker situation, and giving you guys like a little bit more of a judgment on which group needed it more. So the Packers went into the 2017 season with several different needs, with cornerback being very highly on their list. Outside linebacker was another. There weren't too many cons to either one of those players, and if the Packers had gone with either one, I would have been fine with that. Trust me, you guys, I really was pounding the table for the Packers to take TJ Watt. But as you can tell right here on this spreadsheet, I have everything lined out to what the Packers looked like for the cornerback situation and outside linebacker situation, with the cornerbacks here where there was some unfortunate injuries that happened to the Packers back in 2016, with Sam Shields, the number one cornerback, going to injured reserve, and then that in turn left a carousel for the Packers. You had Demarius Randall, Ladarius Gunter, Josh Hawkins. Those guys were starters for the Packers down the stretch in the 2016 season, and that was really a part of the downfall of the Packers' cornerback issues in 2016, were injuries and a whole bunch of inexperienced young players that really weren't ready for the role, such as Ladarius Gunter and Josh Hawkins. They flashed a little bit of potential, but they were very much outmatched against number 1 and 2 wide receivers on most football teams. The outside linebackers in 2016, on the other hand, were much better. We had Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, Nick Perry, Kyler Fackrell, Dayton Jones, and Jayrone Elliott. So it was pretty deep. It was a pretty deep group of outside linebackers. Unfortunately, Clay Matthews hasn't really been his old self. He kind of took a little bit of a slide back from the year before, in which he played inside linebacker instead of, but he decided to go back to outside linebacker. And he had a pretty good year, and so did Julius Peppers. Nick Perry often wound up going in and out with injuries. And here is what happened with in 2017 here. The cornerbacks and linebackers that signed with a new team. Dayton Jones, he wound up leaving to go to Minnesota. Julius Peppers went back to go sign with his old team, the Carolina Panthers. And Jayrone Elliott was traded to Dallas. I believe that was shortly before the 2017 season was set to start. So the Packers lost some outside linebackers. They were mostly just the last two guys on the depth chart, but they did lose Julius Peppers, a starter. And then for the cornerback position, the Packers lost Ladarius Gunter, and then our number 1 cornerback Sam Shields, and Makenton Dorleant, a camp guy. He wound up going to injured reserve, unfortunately, and that was how things were for the Packers. When it came to losing, they lost 3 each. And then in 2017, here is how things were for the season. The Packers, they drafted Kevin King in the second round, 33rd overall, and they traded from 29 out of the first round to select him, and in turn got a 4th round pick from the Cleveland Browns, and they selected an outside linebacker, and they got Vince Beagle, another Wisconsin outside linebacker, and there was a lot of praise for the Packers when it came to being able to get another pick and draft another Wisconsin outside linebacker. So I thought that it was actually a pretty good decision at the time for the Green Bay Packers to go that route, collect an extra pick, and be able to come away with a position of need at outside linebacker, even though Vince Beagle was not quite as talented as TJ. I thought it was kind of a win-win for the Packers at the time, because the way I see it, the Packers, I think, had a pretty big dire need at cornerback at the time. We lost Sam Shields. He wound up being a free agent and didn't even sign with the team. If he did sign with the Los Angeles Rams at some point. I think he signed with them during the 2018 season. Correct me if I'm wrong. the Packers did sign Devon House. We welcomed him back to Green Bay for a year, and in which Devon was able to start for the Packers outside, and he was certainly an upgrade over Demarius Randall, who had some issues, and he was better off playing that nickel role as opposed to an outside cornerback role, and that was how things were. And Josh Hawkins was relegated, going back to being a backup. We had several cornerbacks going to injured reserve that in return got a little bit more of a carousel. Unfortunately, Kevin King wound up going to injured reserve sometime a little bit in the middle of the season, and that was an unfortunate thing, as that kind of hampered Kevin from being able to really develop into a corner right away in his rookie season. But he did show some potential when he was healthy in his rookie year. And then we look at the outside linebackers. Here's how things went down. We had Clay Matthews and then Nick Perry. Unfortunately, he wound up going to injured reserve. I forgot what the injury was, and I forgot where he went to injured reserve. But that was an unfortunate problem with Nick, was injuries. If he had been able to stay healthy, and who knows what Nick probably could have turned out to be here in Green Bay. Probably certainly not the bust that a lot of people would say that he was. And then there was the promising young Kyler Fackrell. There was some potential with Kyler, and the Packers signed an outside linebacker in free agency, Ahmad Brooks. So the outside linebacker group honestly had a little bit of promise. So it's not like they didn't backfill for the loss of Julius Peppers, Dayton Jones, and Jaron Elliott. And now let's go to a what-if scenario. What if the Packers stayed at 29 and took T.J. Watt? And we will see what the Packers roster might have looked like for the cornerbacks and outside linebackers if, in fact, the Green Bay Packers decided to stay at 29, not take the trade, and not have selected Kevin King in the second round. So here is what the cornerback room would look like. We have Devon House, Demarius Randall, Josh Hawkins. It's basically almost the same group minus Kevin King. There was probably a possibility for the Packers to select a cornerback a little bit later in the draft, possibly in the bottom of the second round. The pickings probably could have been either Fabian Moreau, the UCLA cornerback, or Ahkello Witherspoon. I believe he was in that draft. So the Packers had probably one of those two options to be able to get a rookie cornerback. And then for the outside linebacking group, this would be exactly what they would look like. Exactly what the room would look like. Clay Matthews, Nick Perry, T.J. Watt, Kyler Fackrell, Reggie Gilbert, and Chris Odom. We wouldn't have Vince Beagle. So that is a little bit of something that might be able to help you guys understand a little bit of the reasoning why the Green Bay Packers decided to trade out of the first round and go at the top of the second round, select Kevin King, a good potential young cornerback to develop, and could have been a very good starting outside cornerback for us if the injuries weren't such a huge factor. And then for the outside linebacking group, T.J. Watt certainly had a whole lot of potential. There was a lot of good things to say about T.J., and I'd like to be able to go here to his scouting report and what some other people have said about T.J. This is coming from several different scouts, what they said about him. This AFC scout here said, "I think he'll end up being in the second round. When your starter, he's good." And then here is another AFC scout. "He needs to play with more strength and base. On the ground too much. Has tremendous work ethic. He is on the come. Athletically really tested well. I don't think he's a first rounder. I like him a lot. He's a 3-4 outside backer. Good rusher, good motor. He's not as talented as his brother, but he plays the same way. Hard every play." And those are some of those that were pretty much a little negative about TJ. He is not a first rounder. He's physical and tough. He tested out well. He plays hard. And then here's what an NFC scout said. "He could slide into the first. I see a good, solid player. Not a 4-3 defensive end. Overachiever, hard worker, aggressive player. He and Tech McKinley are about even. He is a second rounder for me. Some 3-4 team is going to take him as a Sam over the tight end. he's a heck of a kid. He's a second or third round player from another NFC scout. And another NFC scout here says he'll go in the second round. First round would be a stretch. He's physical, best on the move as a rusher, working games. He's got a top motor, nose for the ball, effort, fast and long, not real good dropping. Poor grammar there. Or I just said it wrong. Probably could be a 4-3 defensive end, but his body wouldn't be ideal. Looks the part, just not a dynamic pass rusher. He's a true 3-4 guy. I actually like Beagle better, but of course he's got the name and all. The name helps him. So there were definitely some kind of mixed feelings about TJ from some of these scouts. And, of course, a lot of people would think that these scouts are a bunch of idiots. They have no clue what they're talking about. But like I said, hindsight is 20/20. These guys, these scouts, they get paid to do their jobs. And they are at the top of the line when it comes to football. I mean, these are professional football scouts. So you can take them you can take what they say with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, really, you guys can see that obviously TJ has worked out really well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As if you would like to be able to play the hindsight game, that's the easy game to play. I think I would just have to say to everybody is take a look back at the time when the Packers made a decision, and if it was a good, sound decision based off of sound logic, or perhaps the Packers just botched it up and conventional wisdom wound up winning this one. But those are my thoughts, and for another video, I'll catch you guys later. Go Pack, go.